So now we're on Daf Tzadiches Amid Beis, and we're quoting a brisa that's interpreting the pasuk of V'lokach hakoines hazroa b'shela min ha'ayil. What's b'shela? So the brisa records the following machlokas here on the top of Tzadiches Amid Beis. Ein b'shela el shlema. Now, the simple pshat in shlema means that we're going to cook the entire ram in one whole entity without removing the zroa. And apparently, the word b'shela comes from a different language. I don't know what language it is, but the word b'shela doesn't mean what we think it means, cooked, but rather it means whole, W-H-O-L-E. And the Torah goes out of its way to use the word b'shela to teach me that the aisle is cooked as a whole entity. However, Reb Shimon Yochai Omer, Ein b'shela shel nizbash lo min ha'ayil. He's not willing to go to another language. He wants to stick to Lashon Kodesh. And in Lashon Kodesh, the word b'shela means cooked with. And cooked with apparently means that we separate the zroa from the cooked ram, right? So let's read again the pasuk. The pasuk says, "V'lokach hakoines hazroa b'shela min ha'ayil." So there's the zroa, and then there's the b'shela min ha'ayil. They're two separate entities. And let's add one little point here. Min ha'ayil. Min ha'ayil means the zroa is taken away from the ayil. Right? So you sever the zroa before you cook the ayil. And then you cook the ayil together with the zroa. The kuli ayil, nobody argues body had ayil mavashale. Whether it's the Tanakama or it's Reb Shimon, everybody agrees that we're going to cook the zroa in the same pot together with the ayil. The only machlokas is mar sover machatech leva hodem mavashale, and mar sover mavashale v'hodem machatech. So according to one opinion, you cook the ayil in its entirety, and according to the other opinion, first you sever the ayil, and then after severing the ayil, you cook the ayil. First you sever the zroa, and then after you sever the zroa, you cook the zroa together with the ayil. That's one shot in the machlokas. Ibay Seima, now the Gemara offers a second possibility in interpreting this controversy between Tanakama and Reb Shimon to Kuliyal Melchatech v'Hadar Mavash. Everybody agrees that first you sever the foreleg from the rest of the ram, and then you cook them together. So again, everybody agrees that you sever the zroa first. What is the machlokas? And now we have a much more extreme machlokas. Mar sover bahadi ayil mevashale. Now we're going to take the severed foreleg and cook it together with the ram in the same pot. Umar sover b'kdei acheres mevashale. We're gonna cook the zroa after we separate it in a separate pot. We never cook it together in the same pot with the ayil. We can't do that because if we do that, then the tam of the zroa, which is also to Yisrael, will permeate throughout the entire ayil, and it will prohibit the ayil because now the ayil itself has the tam of the zroa. Therefore, it should be also to Yisraelim, and the Torah commands the Yisraelim to eat the ayil. But according to the other opinion, meaning the Tanakama, that you cook, according to Rabbi Shimon, I meant to say, that you cook the zroa together with the ayil, now we have to introduce bittul. So Gemara says the following: the lishna kama, according to the first lishna, that we don't even sever the foreleg before we do the cooking process, is aliv divrei hakol. Everybody now has to agree that we have to apply the principle of bittul, and we have to figure out the ratio between the zroa and the ayil. But the lishna basra, then only according to Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, because Reb Shimon is of the opinion bahadi ayil mevashale, that after we sever the zroa, we cook it together with the ayil, and therefore we need bittul. Okay, now let's figure out, according to those two, whether it's everybody in the first interpretation or it's only Reb Shimon in the second interpretation. Now we have to calculate. So what is the ratio between the ayil and the zroa? And here we come up with two possibilities. One is Manti Omer B'Shishim. How did you calculate Shishim? How did you arrive at the calculation of Shishim? Savar Bosar Atzomus Bahadi Bosar Atzomus Masharina Le Bahavi Le B'Shishim. Mars Omer B'Meya. Savar Bosar Bahadi Bosar Masharina Bahavi Le B'Meya. So the ayil itself is made up of a basar, which is exactly the same as the zroa. The zroa is basar and the ayil has basar, but there are other parts to the ayil. It also has atzamos and it has gidin, it has bones, whatever else it has. And now the question is, how do you go about measuring it? So it works like this. If you're going to assume that the Torah allowed bittul here, according to 3 out of 4 possibilities, meaning that the zroa was cooked with the ayil, and you're going to calculate not only the meat, the basar of the ayil, but also the atzomos, then the ratio now becomes 1:60. Why? Because most of the atzomos are in the ayil itself. Although the zroa has an etzem, but there's a very large volume of atzamos in the rest of the ram. I mean, even in the other 3 legs, you already have 3 times the volume of the bone of one leg, of the foreleg. But there are bones throughout the body. So the ratio is going to turn out to be 1:100. And that's what the Torah was matir here for the non-Kohen to eat the ayil, because there's a ratio of 1:100. The other Madiyamar says, no, we're not going to calculate that atzomos, and therefore the ratio in basar is going to be 1:60. Oh, now the Gemara gets excited. Umi alfina minei, are we justified in deriving conclusions about bittul from the case of zroa b'shela nazir ayil shel nazir vasanya? We have a brayso that says zeh heter abba michal isur. This heter that the Torah allows you to eat the ayil, meaning the non-Kohen, is a very exceptional case. And it doesn't represent your classic tarovis of Isa v'heter. And take a look at the word zehu. Zehu, this is the case where you could be matir the heter even though the Isa was mixed in with the heter. Lamute mai, lav lamute kol Isur Shabbat Torah. So in other words, you cannot use zroa bi'ayil as your prototype and derive any conclusions about Shari Suri Torah and the ratio that would allow you to apply bittul, because this is an exceptional case. Now, why is this an exceptional case? So this is called a chidush. Why is it a chidush? Amar Abaye lo nitzchal Rabbi Yehudi amivin b'mino lo batel kamashmal halcha batel. Normally, if you have a mixture of 2 items that have the identical tam, according to Rabbi Yehuda, min b'mino afilu be'elef lo batel, there's no bittul. Now the Zroa and the Ayel are considered min b'mina. It's basar with basar, just different parts of the Ayel. And yet the Torah allows for bittul. Apparently, this is an exception to the rule, and Rabbi Yehuda would have to say that this is an exception to the rule. Again, the Gemara is going to attack Rabbi Yehuda in a minute and say, well, why can't you make this into the rule? But right now we're holding this is the exception to the rule, and min b'mino is going to be batel, but it's an exceptional case because as a universal rule, Rabbi Yehuda maintains that min b'mino lo batel. And therefore don't derive conclusions about Shari Surim from an exceptional case. Chiddush does not teach me an exceptional case. We'll see later on Kuf Ches that there's a sugya about basar b'chalav, and we're going to see there also that the Torah would not allow us to derive any conclusions whatsoever from basar b'chalav because basar b'chalav is a chiddush, because this is heter and this is heter, and all of a sudden it becomes isur. Anyway, if in this particular case the Torah allows for bittul despite the fact that it's min b'mino, why doesn't Rabbi Yehuda concede that this should be the paradigm from which we could derive the conclusion that min b'mino is batel? And the Gemara answers that we have another source that min b'mino ain't batel. When did we have this Gemara? Just curious. Anyway, we had this Gemara in the past. I think it was in Menachos. Goli Rachmana, with regard to the Avodas Yom Kippurim, it says, "V'lokach midam hapar midam hasoyer." We combine the dam hapar and the dam hasoyer. Each one has its own avodah. Okay, let me just make one point here that Rashi emphasizes here. The dam hapar has a greater volume than the dam hasoyer. Right, a bull has more blood than a goat. And therefore, we would have applied the principle of bittul berov, and the dam hapar would be mavatul the dam hasoyer. Yet, the Torah calls it dam hapar and dam hasoyer. Each one has its own haktor al gabi mizbeach, and the dam hasoyer retains its status and its identity as a dam hasoyer. And yet they both have the same tam, chavai b'hadi adodi ninu v'lo batel. In other words, the dam hasoyer, although it should be subject to bittul, and therefore it should nullify its status, nevertheless, no, the Torah says it still has the status of dam hasoyer. So the Torah is saying there's no bittul. Why is there no bittul? The answer is because it's min b'mino, it's dam v'dam. Why do you choose to derive the universal halacha of min b'mino lo batel from dam hapar and dam hasoyer, and the exception to the rule is going to be the basar and basar of ayil, Israel and ayil? Why not do it the other way around? Why not say that from Zroa b'shela b'ayil we're going to derive the general rule that min b'mino is batel, and therefore the non-Kohen is allowed to eat the ayil, and dam hapar and dam hasoyer is the exception to the rule. I think where it says chidush will be chidush lo gamrinan. We have a principle that we don't derive from a chidush. Now, what exactly is the chidush here? So here we have a machlokas between Rashi and Tosel. I'll just mention it very quickly in passing. Rashi learns that the Torah is allowing cooking the zroa with the b'shela, initially meaning l'chatchila, and we never allow bittul l'chatchila. We don't put iser and heter together and cook it. Tosfos says that's not the pshat, but the pshat is that the Torah commanded us a mitzvah to be mavatal. That makes it into a chidush. Once you've already told me that according to Rabbi Yehuda, the din of Zra b'Shela in the Isle of Nazir is a chidush, that even l'chatchila you're allowed to do bittul, then how do you have the right to use that as your paradigm to derive either shishim or mea? So the Gemara answers, okay, let's just figure out the Gemara's answer even before we read it. The Gemara is going to say the following, that to derive bittul as a kula, that we can't derive from a chiddush. Chiddush cannot teach me kulos. So you want to derive the conclusion that min b'mino can be batel, we can't derive that from Zroa b'Shela because that's l'chatchila, the Torah allows it, that's a chiddush. But l'chumra, that there should not be bittul b'rov, meaning the Torah says achirab lahatis, which we should apply to min b'mino. And now we're saying, no. You need shishim, you need mea, that's a chumra. Oto anan kula gamrina l'chumra gamrina d'vidaraisa beruba batel minaraisa, you would say bittul is enough with rov. Now we're deriving from Zerah l'Shela Chumrah that you need either Shishim or you need Mea. That we could derive from a Chidush. Rav ha'omar lo nitzchol l'tam ki ikar. The brisa about Zerah b'Shela b'Ayla Nazir is teaching me a new Chiddush of tam ki ikar. Tam kiker means that when you absorb the tam of an iser, that which absorbs the tam of the iser is considered like nevela itself. It's considered like a hefta d'isura, as if it was the original iser. And therefore, the aisle is considered like the original iser if you don't have shishin. And Rava holds that we would have said that the halacha of tam ki ikar, that which absorbs the tam is like the ikar. It's as if it was the iser from the get-go. That's a chumrin kodshin. Kamash malon, that's what the Brisa wants to teach me. The hachashari. That although in a case of kodshim, we're going to say tam ki ikar. But this case is the exception. So again, Rava like Abaye is talking about Rabbi Yehuda. According to Abaye, Rabbi Yehuda applies the rule of min b'mino lo batel, and tam doesn't play a role over here. I'll read to you one line here in the note. He says, according to Abaye, the Torah treats the tam of Isur as the equivalent of the Chefza d'Isur itself. And therefore, if Rabbi Yehuda holds that there's no bittul in min b'mino, so that's because the tam is irrelevant. There simply is no bittul. So when the Brisa says that when in Zrol Chayayim, in Zrol Be'ayil, where there is tam, we can derive a general rule that there's no bittul in min b'mino. So whereas generally Rabbi Yehuda holds min b'mino is not batel, in the case of Zroa Bi'ayil, there is bittul, and the tam of the zra is batel in the ayil. So that's the exception to the rule where min b'mino is batel. But in general, min b'mino is not batel. Rava, however, holds that for the most items in the Torah, we don't apply tam ki'ikar. Rabbi Yehuda's rule that min b'mino lo batel only applies where that which was asur in and of itself, it's a chefta d'isura from the get-go, fell into taroves with mino, like in the case of dama par and dama soyer, and the dam itself was subject to taroves, to mix together. But if you only have tam of isur, for example, the tam of an isur penetrated into a chefza de tera, then the chefza de tera retains its status as heter with the tam of isur in it. Right? Because you recall that the Brisa said, Zeu heter haba michlal isur. Meaning, in Kachim, the tam of, let's say, the Zra is considered like the Zra itself, and therefore can't become butter. Okay, I see that the hour is late, so we'll stop here. Now we're up to Tzadi Tesam and Aleph, V'ligmar Mineh.